Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. I hope you're all well. Sorry, I just bumped into the microphone there. Yeah, it's a Sunday night here in the studio in the workshop here, coming live. I thought I'd do another live show. I'm using these shows as these live streams as more of a obviously to entertain, hopefully, and also to get some news out when I'm doing news related stuff, but also I'm constantly testing new bits of equipment or new settings as well. So hopefully the video is coming through nice and clear, and the sound is nice and clear for you as well. I did notice in my last live stream, which I did yesterday, I kept on turning my head away from the microphone, and the sound kept on going. So I was kind of doing this, and obviously the sound was a little bit different. Anyway, listen, there's no news tonight. There's no motorcycle news. I'm not talking motorcycle manufacturers. I'm not talking new bikes, new products. I'm not talking about anything like that at all. What I'm talking about is this: biker movies, motorcycle related movies, I suppose, but biker movies. You know, those traditional ones. Now, I don't know what it is, but yes, there have been a few in recent years, and there's a little bit cyclical, I suppose. You know, they come and go, but there hasn't really been. I remember back in the 80s, I was certainly sort of 60s, 70s when I was a kid. There was quite a few of them around. A lot of those were quite B-rated movies. I got to say, especially looking back on them now. But then the 80s, there seemed to be a whole host of them all over the place, and I suppose video VHS cassettes coming out, and that just enable them to explode. But then you look now on the streaming services, a lot of them have they've come out with motorcycle related films, and a lot of them are quite cheaply made, I gotta say, or it appears that way. But they don't seem to be mainstream. They don't seem to be like big. Well, I don't think they were ever big budget motorcycle movies, but there have been a couple in the past. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up tonight or have this discussion was because I caught an interview, or very tail end of an interview, with some of the old Sons of Anarchy actors the other day. They're at some kind of press conference, or some fan conference thing, and what's his name, Charlie Hunnam, who played the Jax Teller. He kind of gave a little tease, a little intimated that maybe he was going to talk to the rest of the cast about doing something else. Now, it was always muted that the Sons of Anarchy, whilst there's been a spin-off, the Mayans MC, and that's doing quite well, I think. I'm led to believe. I haven't watched the latest series, but it's kind of followed on the same line. I think of what I've seen, it seems to be a bit more realistic in terms of being quite true to the area in which they are living and operating, Mexican border, and so of all the like tunnels, and all the issues that are going on down there. So from that point of view, it seemed a little bit more real to me. But anyway, listen, that's a side issue. But so they've had that spin-off, but the story was that they're always going to try and make a prequel or a few prequels, and it could have been a series or it could have been a movie, and but that hasn't happened. It's never happened, and it's been a number of years now. So one of the interesting things I find was, at the time, Kurt Sutter, the creator of Sons of Anarchy, and then who went on to create or co-create the Mayans, but I think he might have fell out with the organizers there, so he's basically nowhere. He's kind of disappeared, as far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know much about the guy myself, but he's I don't think he's making any TV or movie stuff anymore, as in directing or anything like that. So I kind of, I think in many ways he became a bit of a parody of himself and of his characters, and you know. And I know sometimes that kind of happens with actors, don't they? They play a role for a certain time and then they start acting that part as well. But it's still only acting a part, if you know what I mean. So maybe he fell foul of that a little bit. I don't know. But so at one stage, you seem to be everywhere, all over the internet. But he's just gone dark. He's just gone totally radio silent. Well, you know, so I don't follow the guy, so I couldn't really tell you. But it'd be very interesting, I think, if they made some kind of prequel film or some kind of spin-off of that, or maybe made a film that filled in the blanks a little bit, or you know, there was another story that we just didn't know, and I think that would be really interesting. And I think there'd be a huge following, and I suppose this is where I scratch my head a little bit with the whole biker movie thing. Because yeah, looking back in the day, a lot of them were cheesy. I have my favorites. I have my favorite movies, but some of them pretty cheesy and pretty awful. I've got to say. Some of them all right. Even some of the new ones, I've reviewed them. I've had them in magazines. You know, I think they were a half decent watch, but I think I wouldn't say they were groundbreaking. But there just doesn't seem to be an appetite for it, which I think is surprising given the popularity of Sons of Anarchy and the Mayans MCM, but also the popularity of the theme of bikers or outlaw bikers or motorcycle club life and stuff like that. And that seems to have exploded, and possibly, you know, due to the popularity of Sons of Anarchy, but the motorcycle clubs were always there, of course. But I'm saying the extra ones that came on. So maybe that was it. Maybe you know, it's kind of run its course as well. You know, there were all these YouTube channels, you know, they're kind of all talking about it, they're all discussing it. And I don't know how popular they've got, or if they've started to lose popularity themselves. I mean, I was kind of interested in the subject matter for a while, I suppose, but not. I mean, not really. Not in terms of the real life scenario. I was always interested in sort of, you know, biker movies for the stories. Really, it's purely stories, and Sons of Anarchy, I think, did a very good job of storytelling. Yes, it was far-fetched. Yes, it was all those things that you could label at it, but it was good fun. It was a yarn. It was, you know, it was well written in many ways, in some ways, well acted, certainly, you know, and it was all pretty good certainly for the time. And it was at that time where they were starting to make a lot more television programs that were a lot more raw. They showed a lot more violence. They showed a lot more, you know, gritty stuff, as it were. So I think from that point of view, it was kind of groundbreaking. I think there's still the audience out there for that kind of thing. I mean, there were lots of rumors again in the. I don't know if it's in the movie world or the, you know, in kind of industry press, which I've read over the years, where there were lots of pitches for different stories to be told, you know, biker stories, let's say, and they've had big names associated with it, big actors associated with these roles, and just like lots of things in these, you know, movie world, let's say, not biker movie world, but movie world, you know, these ideas are pitched, but they never get anywhere, or they might take years and years to come to fruition. And then also, you know, the fashions change, don't they? So you kind of wonder, is that the biker movie, the biker genre, the biker, whatever you want to call it, whether it's just dead, or it's dead in the water? You know, are people even interested in this kind of content? Sorry, I keep on knocking the mic. I do apologize. But, you know, is anybody interested? Is anybody interested in watching, you know, that kind of content, even on YouTube, let's say, or whatever, TikTok? You know, is the motorcycle way, is it of not interest anymore? And I think maybe, certainly my age group, I would imagine it is, but the younger generation, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just not interesting at all. Now, I've been watching actually quite a few scooter films recently, and in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, there's been quite a few scooter films made, you know, mod films made here, and you know, a couple are pretty good, a couple are pretty not so good. But that's interesting. There's been a bit of a revival of that kind of subculture of motorcycle films, or in this case, scooter films, mod films. But there hasn't really been a revival of the traditional biker movie. Yes, there's been a couple, made from different countries, from Australia, I think from New Zealand, another one as well. And they were pretty decent as well. But they're quite a dark and moody. There wasn't really your American biker movie. We had a couple of British ones made about 10 years ago, and they were quite good, actually, quite funny. But again, nothing more about that. And you would think, actually, within the motorcycle world, there's got to be lots of stories. The problem with biker films, or bikers portrayed in movies and films, usually they're portrayed as bad guys, aren't they? Or kind of people who just risk takers, don't do any good, all that kind of stuff. And I suppose, watching a film about goody two-shoe bikers is going to be a bit of a boring watch, isn't it? So I suppose you want to watch something that's a little bit more raw. So if they're not shooting guns or blowing up buildings, or whatever, decapitating monsters or whatever, it's not really much of a show, is it? So I think that's the problem with the biker movie. The only biker movie that I say is going to be real in many people's eyes, and I use that inverted commas there, is if they're depicting the motorcycle club life. But I question whether people are really that interested in watching anything like that. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But on the basis that Sons of Anarchy, and especially now Mayans, has proved quite popular, I'm surprised that they haven't come out with a film. Now, I was always led to believe. I heard a rumor that the Sonny Barger story from the Hells Angels, Sonny Barger story, who died recently, who passed away, that story was going to be told. Now, I heard that story is going to be told a few years ago. I heard another story about another famous Hells Angel from San Francisco area. That story was going to be told as well. And I seem to believe Tom Hardy, the actor Tom Hardy, was in the role for that one as well. But again, nothing came of that. Now, whether these things are still in pre-production or on the drawing board, as it were, the planning board, who knows? But the thing is, you would look at certain characters within the motorcycle world from the past, let's say, and you think, wow, you've led really interesting lives. And you think, well, could there be something there? Certainly somebody who's like charismatic, of the ilk of a Sonny Barger, who I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about him per se. I don't know much about that world, but there are certain people that you kind of know the name of, and you think, okay, yeah, that'd be an interesting story. Now, would it be a documentary or would it be an actual story? I don't know. Well, I don't know what the process is to make movies, really, and I don't know, what it takes. But no, let us know. I mean, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. In the comments afterwards. Would you want to go and watch a biker movie in the cinema? The pictures. I mean, that brings up another question. Are cinemas on their last legs? Are people in the movie house? Whatever. Are people going to be watching movies, or is it all streaming now? I've got to say, I rarely go to the pictures myself. Occasionally, I will. I think the last one I actually went to was to watch Top Gun. I think so. For a really good big movie, I think going to the cinema is cool. I enjoy it. But most films are just stream on Amazon, Netflix, whatever. There's lots of streaming services now. I mean, you could pay for them all, couldn't you? But I'm not doing that. So with these streaming services, like Netflix and everything, it gives a lot more scope for a lot more movies and TV programs to be made. And especially with Amazon, it seems that a lot of independent type, indie type films are there, and they're readily accessible. And I think biker movies, or modern biker movies, that might be the platform to have it. You together with your friends, you you club together, you make a movie and you put it out there, or you could put it on even YouTube, that kind of thing. So and maybe there is the appetite for it, or maybe people's attention spans are just so short these days, and I say that in the kind of nicest possible derogatory way, in that most people just don't really want to watch long form stuff anymore. Going to a movie, sitting down for 2 or 3 hours. Most people just want to, absorb content, whatever it is, a little video, quick 5-minute video, and that's it. And sometimes, I had a comment the other day. I was doing a video live stream about the Harley Davidson recall of the Nightster. It's the live shows I'm doing are magazine live shows, so I'm talking about other issues as well, other stories of the day. And that story was coming towards the end. Now, my mistake was that right at the start of the live stream, I should have said, look, I'll talk about this later. But people are impatient. They don't know, why are you talking about that? Why are you talking about that? Well, I have, and I will, but a little bit later. So people don't want to have a long conversation when they're watching something. Maybe if they're listening to something, listening to a podcast, listening to something on the radio whilst they're driving or something like that. Maybe whilst they're doing something else, fine. But if they're watching something, they want something instant, quick. They just want it there. And maybe that's where sitting down for 2 hours and watching a biker movie, which maybe people are even not that interested in. Maybe that's the reason why they're just not being made. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is here, to be honest with you. So, I thought I'd open up for discussion. I think it's a wider discussion to be had. I think there's scope. I think it'd be very interesting if some of the actors got together, or some kind of production company got together and made some kind of prequel to the Sons of Anarchy. But if they're going to make a prequel to the Sons of Anarchy, then surely you can't have the same actors, because they'd be in the future, wouldn't they? So unless something like the guy who played Jax Teller plays his own father, if you know what I mean. What was his name? John Teller, wasn't it? So maybe that. Let me get into a couple of comments and I'll carry on here. Bleak Rides. Hey, that's a cool name. Hey, I'd like to see a moto movie, but we'll done maybe a war movie that captured the nostalgia similar to the way The Last Indian captured hearts. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Renegade. Hello. I was just thinking that being aged since I saw a good biker movie. Yep. Super Dream Racer. Crikey, back in the day. God, yeah, it's a good one, but it's an oldie. Yeah, Sons of Anarchy was good too. I like the documentary stuff, like A Long Way Around. Yeah, I mean, I like all that stuff, but I'm just talking about actual biker movies. I mean, Super Dream Racer. That was who was the actor? David Essex, I believe. David Essex was the biker there. Look, there have been some really good ones, and if you're watching tonight or you're watching later, drop down your favorite biker movie that you've seen over the years. It's one of those. It's one of those genres of movie that no matter what it is, I'm a bit of a sucker for it. I will always watch it. I will always try and watch it. And if it's truly terrible, I will switch off. But most of the time, 99.9% of the time, I will watch them through, and I probably think, yeah, that was a bit rubbish at the end of it. But I'll give it. And it's purely, it's kind of eye candy for me, in that it's just watching bikes. It's got nothing to do with bikers or biker lifestyle or anything. Again, I've kind of said this over and over again in on my channel. That aspect of motorcycling, I kind of find remotely interesting, but not really. It's not something that I think, well, it's bikes. It's bikes. Any kind of bike. Yes. Morris. Yeah, Silver Dream Race, I think. Yes, decent one. Yeah, Bleak Ride, same. If it's two wheels, I'll watch it. I think, yeah, I'm exactly the same. If it's two wheels, I'm definitely in for the count, as it were. But I just wonder. Is there an appetite for this anymore? Because there's also There was also another sector of is that the right word, sector? Anyway, another arm of the biker world, or biker movie world, I should say. And that was where the films were never about motorcycling or bikers or biker lifestyles, but you had bikers featured in them. Let's say, whatever. There was like a 15-minute segment where bikers used to, come in, and then the locals would, have a fight with the bikers, whatever, and then they go swanning off down the road. That kind of thing. And usually what they would do, the producers, they would get proper bikers in on that to help with the authenticity, or with the insignia, with the biker look, the patches and all that sort of stuff. So they'll there's a very famous film. Maybe some of you guys know it. It's called The Bronx Tale. It's about mafia, basically, which is another really big interest of mine. But gangsters, Italian gangsters in New York. Anyway, so in the Bronx, would you believe there's a Bronx Tale? Anyway, so these bikers go into a local bar run by, obviously, Italians, and they start causing trouble. Anyway, the local gangsters come in and give them a good shoeing. Right. But that's not the story. The story is actually the bikers there. They are all local House Angels, I believe, and one of them, who's an actor, bodybuilder, security type guy. I forgot what his name is now. Chuck Zito, I think his name is. He organized it all. He did it all because he was into kind of acting as well, that kind of stuff. So a lot of those guys were, I think they were all real bikers, as it were. And that's quite a common theme in movies, where they got a certain group of people. Now, sometimes they are definitely actors. You can tell they're actors, but other times, no. In the background, they're actual real bikers. So but I'm not just talking about that. I'm not talking about biker movies, as in motorcycle club movies. I'm not just talking about the other section of motorcycle movie that featured motorcycle clubs in it, or as whatever. But I'm also talking about the other types of motorcycle movies, the biker movies, that were just good stories about people with motorcycles, going on a road trip, going, the Easy Rider type thing, where the story wasn't really about motorcycling, about being biker. In fact, in many ways, it's kind of anti-biker if you really dig deep into it. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's a motorcycle film, but it's also about other things as well. Morris, yeah, nice. Here we go. World's Fastest Indian. Yeah, I really enjoyed that film. That's a good one. So there have been lots of films made in the past that you think, wow, they're motorcycle themed, but they're not. They're really well made, and as we all know, the story and the execution of that story is the most important thing. If you've got a biker movie that's just crap story, crap acted, crap filming, then forget it. It's just crap. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much affection you feel towards bikes and biker lifestyle, whatever. If it's a crap movie, it's a crap movie, and we all know that, right? Well, I think some people will try and defend it as much, but here we go. Renegade. I wasn't expecting much from Wild Hogs movie with John Travolta, but I found it hilarious. Yeah, absolutely. Look, that gets a slating, a regular slating in certain circles. But look, I think that's when people slate the Sons of Anarchy and all that kind of stuff. I think they forget these are just fictional programs, fictional films, and Wild Hogs was supposed to be a comedy. Well, it was a comedy. It is a comedy. Yeah. So that's quite right. Mad Max. Yes. Another series of films that featured motorcycles, but it wasn't obviously it featured motorcycles, but it wasn't about motorcycling culture, I suppose, or motorcycle themes. That was more dystopian, the end of the world, the fight for gas and all that kind of stuff. But there we go. But if we had to have another series of biker movies. Let's say like there was a run in the 80s of biker movies, or motorcycle themed movies, I should say, not biker movies. I keep on using that word. I don't mean to say that word, but it's the whole thing, whatever. What would they be about? What sort of stories would they be about? Would it be just churning the same old, outlaw motorcycle club, 1% motorcycle club, from wherever they are? Would that be the kind of thing that people would be interested in watching? The kind of thing I'm talking about here is not people who are just interested in motorcycle movies or in motorcycle club life, let's say. I'm talking the wider public, the kind of motorcycle movie that transcends the motorcycle community, that transcends the motorcycle club world or the club interest, that kind of thing. Like world's fastest Indian, as Morris said there. That was a film that transcended it. It moved past people's interests. Easy Rider was another film that transcended and moved past it. There have been lots of other films as well. Lots of other films. Nerez, hello. Good evening from Portugal. Good evening. How are you? So I just wonder what kind of story it would be. Would it be the big adventure story? Would it be, the problem with an adventure riding story, a touring riding story, a road trip, a road trip journey on a bike? It's kind of, you'd have to have a really good hook and a really good story with it. Otherwise, it's just another road story. It's just another YouTube video. Do you know what I mean? You've kind of seen them all before. I mean, you can get onto YouTube and or anything like that, but you can get onto YouTube and watch all these YouTube touring videos, and it's just like, well, you're watching somebody's holiday sometimes, and you think, well, I don't want to be dismissive and I don't want to slate them, because people are going out there making some really cool stuff and they're showing you different parts of the world that you haven't been to. I get that, and I'm not saying that, but it's kind of like you're just watching, somebody getting the holiday slaps out and they're saying, "Oh, come on, look at where I went on holiday," and it's just like, well, I'd rather go there myself. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather just go there. But again, they're showing you to entertain you and also to whatever. So if a film is like that, then you kind of think, well, we've got too much of that already. So what would be the next one? I bet Hollywood will give us a Fast and Furious, but on bike. It plays to the younger audience. But here's the thing: do the younger audience even care about motorcycles? I don't think they do. Not to the degree that we used to. Not to the degree. I don't know. Possibly. Now the thing is, they did make a Fast and Furious type on bikes, didn't they? Well, I suppose they did Biker Boys, which was a good movie. I thought that was a really good movie. And there was another one. Now, what was it called? Full Throttle? No, it was RPM. No, it was something like, oh, crikey, Twister Throttle, something like that. It was about some racing guys. It was all right. The other one was, if you can remember that name, it came out just after Fast and Furious, about a year later, and I think they tried to parody it in the film as well. YouTube is great. Tons of old bike movies for free. Yeah, there are loads. If you want to watch old bike movies, YouTube is the place to go. Not another Biker Boys, I hope. Burn Rubber, Not Your Soul, cringe fest. Yeah, what was the other film that they made? There was another. I mean, look, again, you look back on these films, and you're right. I kind of look back on these things. I think, oh my god, it's a bit lame. But at the time, I really enjoyed it. And there was, oh crikey, what was it? There was another film that was it was all young people. Usually there's a bad group and there's a good group, and they're all kind of fighting each other and all that sort of stuff. I forgot what it was called. They're like 6 or more of these Grom kids in my neighborhood, all modded out Groms. Yeah, they seem to be very popular there, don't they? Yeah. I'm not saying that young kids don't like movies. Maybe they do. I don't know. I mean, about a couple of years ago, there was 2 or 3 years ago, again on the streaming service. I think it was Amazon again, but it might have been Netflix. There was a whole little about 7 or 8 movies made of, and they're more kind of focused on the motocross world, the motocross elements as well. So they are making movies about motorcycle culture or motorcycle related themes. They are making them, but they just never seem to hit the mark. They never seem to be that popular. They never seem to be really big blockbusters, let's say. Look, I know if you watch a Tom Cruise film, he always likes to get a motorbike in his films, doesn't he? Him riding his bike. I mean, fair play to him. He loves to ride bikes, and why not? And why wouldn't you? If you want to watch, if you want to, if you want to explore your passion or show your passions, then it stands to right that you're going to get on that passion as much as possible. And he loves flying, and he loves bikes. Why not? But he doesn't really make biker movies. Yeah, they feature in his films, so they're never really motorcycle related content. Quentin Tarantino, I thought, did a decent film, Hell Ride. Again, it was kind of a parody of motorcycle culture as well. There's one of my favorite characters of all time was in that film, called The Gent. I thought it was a really good film. Morris, yes, Quadrophenia was a decent film as well. Yeah, still heavily talked about. And again, as I say, there's been a whole about 4 or 5 mod like movies made recently in the last sort of couple of years, and they've been on Amazon, I think. So well worth. How yeah Bleak Ride, Hell Ride, was Wild Ride. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was a decent one. I've got it on video DVD here as well. Yeah. Um, Again, for every decent biker related movie or motorcycle related movie, there's about 20, 30, 40, 50 that are just not up to scratch. And again, you got to ask why. Why? Because if we're just talking about stories, then surely the stories are in this community as well, this wider community, I should say. There's got to be there. There's got to be something that people are doing on a daily basis that involves motorcycles that is just a really good story. And it's got to be. There's got to be something there. I mean, I know in the past sort of 3 or 4 years. Again, I am a bit of a movie buff, so I do like this, and I'm always on the lookout to see what's coming out. And I know there's been a few foreign films from France and from Germany and from Spain. I think there's been quite a few of recent times that they've made motorcycle related films. But again, they're all right. They're not brilliant. But not. As I said, there hasn't been a big American blockbuster type film for a long, long time that I can think of. I mean, I suppose that the last one, yeah, it might have been the Fastest Indian, possibly the last one. But again, that was about just one bloke really, and his Indian, wasn't it? It wasn't, I was trying to get onto Bonneville Salt Flats, but biker movies, I can't really think of anything really. That was, I mean, back in the day, there was a cinematic release, I think, because most of the films that I'm talking about were straight to video in the 80s. But some made it to the cinema. Stone Cold? I think that was another one. That was all right back in the day. Fun enough, I saw it a few months ago. I was bored one afternoon, so I found it on YouTube. I think you can find it on YouTube, Stone Cold. And one of my favorite actors, Lance Henriksen, he was the bad biker, as it were, the leader of the bad group. What the hell are they called? The Brotherhood, or something like that. Anyway, but they that made it to the cinema. I distinctly going to watch it in the cinema and seeing it. And I thought, yeah, cool, because I was into biker movies and everything. And I always thought at the time, I thought, wow, this is weird, seeing a biker movie in a cinema. Never seen it before, but it was good. It was good. But I said I think that's the only one that I've seen that's been in a cinema. I can't think of anything else. What was the other one? Let me see if I can quickly search for it. movies. What was it called? Oh, I forgot Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. Yeah, that was a decent one. I always enjoyed that one. Um, yeah, there's another one called Outlaws. Yeah, yeah. Oh, Stone Cold there. Oh, crikey, what was it called? Um, it's it was after Biker Boys and it was after Fast and Furious, and it was something called. Oh, crikey, what's that one? No. Um, and it's I won't try and find it because I can't find it. It's it's just bugging me now what it was called. Oh crikey, Twist the Throttle. No, I don't know, something like that. But anyway, listen, there's as I say, there's been a few that I can think of in the past, but most don't. Most are just, and I think maybe that's the way things are going now. I think it's really hard for films to make it to the big screen now. COVID didn't help, of course, but I think people's appetites and the way we consume films is completely different now. We just do it, from our own, from the comforts of our own sofas, don't we? Or whatever. You can pretty much watch a movie on the way. My son catches a train to go and see his girlfriend. He's watching films on his phone. He downloads them before and then he just goes and watches them. So it's just easy, isn't it? You watch on your iPads, you watch on computers, whatever it is. So I don't think the need for a cinematic release is really important, but I think that it's really important to have stories from the motorcycle world told. I think it is. I think I think we should. I the problem. See, here's the problem. It's authenticity. Authenticity. This is the real problem here. That motorcycle movie producers are going to have a real problem in being authentic when it comes to motorcycle related content, especially about motorcycle club world, because if especially um if they're these one percenters outlaw clubs, they're very tight-lipped about that kind of stuff anyway. And sometimes they get advisors, and sometimes they speak with local clubs and all that sort of stuff in terms of protocol and everything like that. And sometimes they might even approach a YouTube channel content creator who's in a motorcycle club. I don't know how these things work. They might ask them, or they might just do their own research. But it's very easy to pick holes in that finished film when you're talking about motorcycle clubs, let's say, or sorry, if you're in a motorcycle club, it'd be very easy to pick holes in that motorcycle club film because you say, well, that's rubbish, that doesn't happen, that's a waste of time. If that really happened, we'd all be arrested and thrown in jail. That was the kind of thing that happened with Sons of Anarchy. People kind of really ridiculing it. People on the outside of the motorcycle world kind of really bought into it, or you just bought into it because you thought it was just a good yarn, a good story, and that's what it was. A bit of fun, escapism. But if you're really I look at films that feature anything that I do in my daily life, as it were, and I'm always rolling my eyes and I'm thinking, God, I can't watch this, because they always get it wrong. They invariably always get it wrong. And I've even talked to program makers, TV makers of in other things that I've done, let's say, and tried to explain to them where they're going wrong or what's happening. And in the end, they just don't really care. It's about their story, and if it's accurate or not, it doesn't really matter when it comes to those sort of finer details that 90% of the population, the viewing population, the viewing audience, and won't even know anything about. And that's where I was always an uphill struggle against people I would talk about these things, and because they just didn't care. It's not relevant, you know. But here we go. Bleak writes, the VinWiki story about the guy doing coast to coast record was pretty cool. Maybe enough to make a movie out of. I would not be surprised if they take some kind of journey like that and turn those into a movie. especially if there's been some kind of disaster along the way. Um, you know what movies are like, especially American movies. You know, there has to be kind of a feel-good factor. There has to be a hero. There has to be an anti-hero. There has to be a message. There has to be, because if you don't have that, there isn't really much point to, you know, having it. You know, there's got to be something there. There's got to be a message at the end. You know, biker comes good, or the biker dies at the end of it, and you know, evil has been thwarted, and all that sort of stuff. So there's got to be something there. You know, it's whether it's a drug deal gone bad, or it's you know, out for revenge type thing. You know, it's whatever ridiculous story you can come up with, it's got to be there. So if you're talking about some kind of road movie, then there's got to be an extra element to it rather than just an achievement. Because if it's just an achievement, then most of the time that kind of falls into the documentary style and not into anything else. I mean, I saw an interview with Keanu Reeves recently, and they're making a documentary about Formula One, a Formula One season from the past, and I forgot what it was, which season they were talking about, but it's about 20 or 30 years ago, and I think. And the interviewer was asking, well, you not thought about making this into a film? He says, no, no, no. This is a documentary. This is definitely for a documentary. So they know, the people in the movie world know what is right for a movie and what is right for a documentary. You know, it's their business. They're bound to know, you know, that this is what they do. This is their bag, as it were. So I think some stories, whilst they might be uplifting and appealing, others won't. I tell you what, a great film you want to watch, a great film. I tell you what, it got nothing to do with motorcycles, by the way. A great film. It's called, it's about the 12 boys and one teacher who went into the caves in Thailand, got caught out by floodwaters, and then they sent in all sorts of people, but it was British divers who actually got them out, right? And I think it's on Amazon. I think it's called 13 Lives, or it could be on Netflix, one of the two. My, what an amazing, it's a reenactment, as it were. It's a film. It's got Colin Farrell and Viggo Mortensen in there, and a couple, you know, a whole host of other people in there as well. But I tell you what, it is a brilliant film. They did that really, really well, in my humble opinion. They did it really well. There we go. Sons of Anarchy was so radically different from the mold. Yes, it was. It focused on the gritty side of MC Live, but by resonates with people worldwide. Yeah, exactly. Because it kind of drew people in. And I don't know what the recipe for this is. I don't know what the recipe is that you make a story, or you make a, you know, a series, and it kind of resonates with people who are not in that world. So you've got to have something that is a little bit, it's got to be true, it's got to be realistic to a point, but then it's also got to be farcical, and it's also got to be unrealistic. You've got to have that entertainment value. Otherwise, it's just no point, you know. And it had a mix of everything. It had a bit of humor. You know, they introduced characters with more humor. There was a real dark side. There was a real kind of, you know, violent side of it. But there was a human side to it, and there was human relationships side to, you know, to that. So, you know, that's interesting. Now we're just sorry, I'm just gonna block that one. There we go. So there's just somebody coming up and blocking. So we don't want no trolls on here. But that's the thing with you know, the Sons of Anarchy thing. It was a very good show, and it was the first motorcycle related program, TV program or film, that come out in such a long time that attacked the story head on and did a really good job. Now, Kurt Sutter, he also did another program before that called The Shield, and he was also a massive fan of The Sopranos. Lots of crossover from The Shield and The Sopranos into Sons of Anarchy as well, especially in the first and second series. Lots of content there, lots of ideas, lots of things there, and and those two shows were brilliant, and it really worked well in that sort of program. So if they could make something like that. I don't think I'm talking about another series here. I'm talking about a movie. I think a movie needs to be made of not necessarily Sons of Anarchy, but I think another movie needs to be made of that kind of quality dealing with motorcycle themes. And it's got to have that mix of realism but farce as well. It's got to be far-fetched in some places, but not too far-fetched. They talk about this in movie making, don't they, or TV world. It's got to retain the suspension of disbelief. In other words, you as the viewer, you've got to still believe what you're seeing, even if it's you know spaceships flying around. There's got to be something in it that you think, yeah, your mind is tricked into thinking this is kind of realistic. And if it's unrealistic, that's when you start to switch off and you don't particularly like it. And obviously, if it's poorly made or poorly acted and it's a bit of a B movie, or the sound is pretty crappy, or the whatever, we all know you can sit through most things, but if it's pretty poor, it's pretty poor. And I think there's scope for it to be made. I mean, over to you guys. I mean, what sort of motorcycle film, biker film, do you think needs to be made? You know, I think there's so many topics. I think there are racing films that could be made. In the past they've made a few motorcycle racing films. There was a really good one back in the day. Again, you look back on it now, and it's old and cheesy, but it's about two American racers, or one racer and his mechanic, who went into I think it was the MotoGP world. And they tried to do stuff there, and yeah, it was a bit over the top, and they won a race, and just like, yeah, I don't think so, not on a Harley you ain't. But but it was really good. So they've made racing films. Obviously, we talked about Silver Dream Racer as well from the past. I think there's been a couple of foreign films where they talked about racing type films as well recently. But you know what, I think something like that would work to a certain degree. Yeah, motorcycle club world. Yeah, I think if they do it right, possibly. I think the tour or the adventure, the motorcycle adventure, something like that. Yeah, I think that would work. But I think if they could look back into history where motorcycles had been used, I mean, for me, I tell you a film that I would be interested in watching if they got the story right, and it would have been the motorcycle couriers, or the motorcycle dispatch riders, I should say. From World War II and subsequent years as well. How the motorcycle was used, and how people were trained, and how they rode them, and what they had to do, and because that's a story that hasn't really been told. I think that they've tried to tell it. I think they've tried to talk it in brief, but they've never really talked about it a lot. And I think that would be a really interesting story, because a lot of those guys are, never ridden bikes. They're put on them and they said, right. And this is like, radios were crap, no phones, of course, and especially back in those days. And so kind of a military story as well. But on the bike, fixing your bikes, and all the challenges and all the heartache, and you're not sure if you're going to come back alive. I think that'd be good. I think that'd be good. Here we go. Okay, story, similar kind of thing here. The stories of the paratroopers riding the Indian behind enemy lines. I think that, yeah, look, I think something like that would be really interesting. Harley Davidson's World War II, Indians World War II, whatever. I think that would be interesting. I think they've made films similar to that in the past. I think possibly, but not as in the main theme. They were part of the fabric of the film, as it were, but not the main story. So maybe something like that would be good. I said it's an interesting one, though, I think, because if you're going to talk about biker movies, it's the story that is everything, and the story is, as I say, it's got to transcend the motorcycle world, but it's got to have a motorcycle heart, as it were. And I'm not sure anything apart from the motorcycle club world, that kind of bad boy image, that kind of recklessness, that kind of outside of society story would appeal. Anything other than that, I don't think it would appeal to the wider audience, the wider masses. It's got to be something that that grabs at the audience, and how they do that, how it does that, I don't know. But anyway, I mean, let us know what you think about that, because I think there have been some great stories out there. Coming of age stories. Older age stories. I mean, it doesn't have to be serious stuff as well. Just like somebody said earlier on, I forgot who it was. I do apologize. Wild Hog or Renegade, I think it was it? He said, let me just go back there. No, is it? I can't remember. Somebody said it. Whoever it was. Thanks very much. But Wild Hogs. That was a fun film. And there've been other fun films made in motorcycle. So there's a British one which is really good. Now what that? No, Silver Butterfly. No, what was it called? Not Silver Butterfly. That's a ridiculous name. Oh, anyway, but that was really good. That was a really good film. So there have been comedy films made with motorcycle content in the past. So it doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be violent. It can be fun, and it can be something, that you just, it's a pleasure to watch, but it's also, it can hold the attention of people who are heavily involved in motorcycle life, in culture, whatever it is, in motorcycle club life, let's say. But it transcends to other people who are outside, and that's the mark of a really good movie, where it can transcend, and if it captures the hearts and minds of the audience at large, and but I'm not convinced that a motorcycle movie, a biker movie, would do that anymore. I find it hard to believe that there aren't stories within that world that are interesting enough. But maybe they just aren't. Maybe it's just not, maybe I suppose that's why they don't make movies about cars, car life or trucking so much, I don't know. I mean, they have done in the past, there's some great films, fun films, in the past about trucking or whatever, but it's weird, isn't it? Modes of transport they feature heavily in films, of course, but they're background. They're the trees, the trees in the forest, as it were. They're just there, but they're not the main focus of the story. And the motorcycles fall into that. They're kind of a mode of transport that people aren't really interested in as a subject matter. But you would think that maybe all the stories have been told. That's maybe that's it. Maybe the stories have already been told, and people are just not. They're just not interested in watching them anymore. As I say, I don't know. Here we go. The lead role has to be the character you mentioned, the gent, someone who plays the lowbrow, but also the high class. Yeah. What is his name? I'm terrible with names. I'm usually that spot on with names. But yeah, he's good as well. I think he's been having some personal problems recently. I think he really struggled through COVID. Would you believe? I think, as a lot of people did as well. But anyway, go. I mean, they were supposed to be making another Wild Hogs film. I thought that was like a run up to that. I think they were talking about it, but they never did. I say that there was supposed to be, I believe, a Sonny Barger film. I know he was trying to make or get other films made of his books. I know he made, and I covered one of the films that he did make, Dead in 5 Heartbeats, which was okay. It was all right. I mean, it was pretty sincere, I suppose, but it was okay, I suppose, in terms of quality and everything like that. But it was never going to be a mainstream film. It's an indie film, an independent film, that kind of thing. But afterwards, it was supposed to be I thought that they were trying to. I know he tried to make um, movies of his films. And he's been speaking with lots of Hollywood people, directors or producers, whatever, for a number of years prior to making that Dead in Five Heartbeats, which he kind of funded himself with lots of other people. They kind of went on their own and did that. And I think I think maybe they thought never again after making that film, but they made it. They did a decent job of it. Michael Madsen, Bleak Christ, thank you, Michael Madsen. That's his name. Yes, the Gent, one of my favorite characters from Hellride. But as I say, so I was always under the impression that they were going to make a film about him. They were going to make a film about was it not not Tony Christie? Crikey, he's oh crikey, who's he? He's somebody else. Somebody Christie, who's one of the Hells Angels leaders. Was he from Los Angeles or from San Francisco? Anyway, I thought they were going to make a movie about him as well. I think they were going to try and make a movie about some other big motorcycle club presidents, long-term president as well. So there's been quite a few of them in the past that have been touted about making lifestyle and not lifestyle biographical films of these whatever. And I think those would be interesting. I think those would definitely be interesting. But again, you're talking about people for the most part who live in a kind of inner circle world as well. There's a public side of it. There's the public perception of it, but then there's an inner circle side of it that people are never going to know. And so to make a movie about that, again, I don't think you're really ever going to get a true representation of what they were really like. And biographical films, by the nature, they kind of have to be as true as possible. And most of the times, these biographical films, they're never that well, they are realistic, but they're never, as true as they can be, because a lot of these people, or a lot of people, there's an inner circle there, and there's an inner truth that other people don't know about. But it would be interesting. So from biographical, yes, or semi-biographical films, yeah, I think that'd be interesting. But I think some just general fictional film would be, I think it'd be equally as great. I think it'd be equally as great, and it'd be good to see that kind of thing. I think, but I think, it'd be interesting to see, keep your ears open and your eyes peeled for any kind of follow-up to Sons of Anarchy, or some kind of spin-off again, or a prequel or something like that. I haven't heard anything. It's literally, I heard a little snippet of an interview with some of the actors from Son of Anarchy, literally a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And the actor who played Jack Teller, the Charlie Hunnam, he was basically saying, "Look, I've got an idea. I'm going to swing it by these guys about a movie," and so I think they were all surprised by it as well. I think, but I don't know how that would ever happen. But those are interesting. The whole thing about Sons of Anarchy is they've got a great story to carry on with there, because Jack Teller's sons could grow up and be like him, right? So the story could be it could come back again. The kids grow up, and then they all of a sudden want to become part of it. And I think what would be a really interesting story is actually if they got Sons of Anarchy now, as in the timeline of the kids growing up and they've gone into being teenagers, young teenagers, and that coming of age of being a teenager, getting into the motorcycle club world. I think that would be a really interesting one, because they'd have struggles between, if they could really show the struggles that a young teenager would have with school, with peer pressure, with social media interactions, with social media bullying, with that kind of thing, trying to fit into a society that actually they're always trying to be excluded from or away from. I think that would be a really good coming of age story. I think that would be really good for those kinds of things. But anyway, look, that's a topic for another day. Look, I almost sound like a movie writer or a movie producer, would you believe? There we go. Right, anyway, Look, the time is cracking on. It's Sunday night. People got to get to work, and well, I've got stuff to do as well. But listen, it's been a pleasure talking about motorcycle movies. So if you're watching this later, let us know. Let us know your thoughts. What would you like to see? What are your favorite biker films? Is the whole genre dead? Would people still want to watch this kind of stuff? Movie producers even interested in it? Would there be a big American box office movie made about it? I don't know. I actually don't know. Is the honest answer. I don't know. I kind of be surprised if there was one made. I'd certainly welcome it, but I kind of be surprised. But it just have to be a really good story. It'd have to be something that tells a good tale, and I think whether it's a farcical tale, a realistic tale, or something. But if it can capture your imagination, then maybe that's it. Panamed, good afternoon, Alf and everyone. Good afternoon to you, sir. I'm late to the party, but I was out riding. Now grilling schlante. Well, enjoy. Dusting Jack's bike. Dusting Jack's bike off, getting it started, and getting in trouble. Great idea, great video. Yeah, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. There we go. Any progress on the Z650? Well, I'm just working on the front end right now. So the front end, can you see it? Yeah, you can see it in the background there. So it's just I'm still putting the parts together. I'm just putting the front end together. I'm just about to strip the front forks. They're going to be going up. Then I'm going to put that front end on with the wheels, and it'll kind of be, well, it won't be a rolling chassis. It'll be because the engine's all ready to go in. Essentially, in fact, if I think about it, there's not a lot much there. I've just got engine mount plates to make. And then it's electrics, which I'd have to work through slowly and surely. And then it's just, brake lines and all that sort of stuff. But everything is there ready to go. It's just I'm missing quite a few parts, so I'm waiting for a few auto jumbles, and then I should be good to go. Right. Anyway, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching the show. Let us know in the comments below any of your favorite biker movies and what you'd like to see. And well, all I can say is I'll catch you again on another live stream coming very soon. Ta-da.